Omari Langston was just 35, yet his name echoed through every elite boardroom in the country. Owner of high-rise hotels, sprawling malls, and several booming enterprises, his empire touched every corner of the city. His mansion looked like a museum of wealth. 10 sprawling bedrooms, a marble pool, a gold-trimmed home cinema, and even an elevator that whispered as it moved. But all that silence in his home wasn't luxurious. It was lonely. He sat quietly by the towering window as rain traced lines on the glass, his chin resting on his hand. No sound of laughter, no children running down the halls, no soft voice calling his name. Only silence. Sharp, echoing silence. Omari had dated women who looked like they belonged on magazine covers, but every smile was fake. Every hug came with a price. One said, "I'll marry you, but I want a Benz and a condo first." Another texted, "You cool and all, but only if my monthly shopping limit includes Gucci." He felt like a bank, not a man, and the truth ate him inside. That evening, seated alone at his grand dining table with untouched steak growing cold, Omari finally spoke his heart to the only person who'd always stood by him, Devin Pierce, his longtime friend and assistant. "I'm done, Devin," he murmured, voice low. "Tired of fake people, fake love. I want someone to love me, not what I own." Devin leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "That's a tall order when your last name is Langston. Everyone sees money, not the man." Omari's eyes lit with a spark. "What if they didn't know who I was?" Devin blinked. "What?" Omari sat up straighter. "What if I disappear, just for a while? Strip away everything. Go live where no one knows me. No suits, no car, no card. Just a beggar with nothing to offer." Devin dropped his fork. "Man, are you hearing yourself?" "I've never been more serious," Omari said, finally smiling for the first time in weeks. "If love can't see past rags, then it was never real, in the first place." That very night, Omari didn't sleep in his king-sized bed. He stood quietly in his massive walk-in closet, ignoring the rows of tailored suits and luxury shoes. Instead, he pulled out a duffel bag and packed it with old jeans, worn sneakers, and a faded hoodie he once used for jogging. He tossed in a torn blanket and just enough cash to buy food for a single day. His gold watches, designer colognes, sleek phone, and platinum cards all stayed behind. He rubbed a bit of dust on his face, smeared some oil in his hair, and stood in front of the mirror. He barely recognized the man staring back. Before stepping out of his marble doorway, Omari took one last glance at the empire he built. "Goodbye, Omari Langston," he whispered. "I hope I come back with more than just fortune. I hope I find peace." He took a city bus to a part of town where nobody would think a billionaire might walk. Rusted signs, cracked sidewalks, and the bitter scent of struggle hung in the air. Here, he became a shadow. He found a spot beside a dusty alleyway, near a crumbling wall, and dropped to the ground. Pulling out a tin cup, he placed it in front of him and lowered his head. The world shifted around him. Pedestrians looked through him like glass. Some flinched at the smell of his clothes, others whispered judgments under their breath. One woman sneered, young and strong but begging, "Go lift a hammer, lazy." Omari said nothing. He just stared at the sidewalk. At night, he curled beneath a bridge with other homeless men. The ground was cold, wet with drizzle. The sound of rats skittering nearby kept him awake. He wrapped himself in the blanket and whispered to the night sky, "This is what truth feels like. Let me feel every moment of it." By the 4th day, hunger gnawed at his belly like a knife. He hadn't eaten a full meal since he left. His head spun. His body trembled. Still, he remained there on the side of that road, leaning against a dusty wall, holding his rusty cup with shaking fingers. And just when he felt the weight of the world push him toward collapse, a voice broke through the fog. "Hello," came a soft, steady voice like sunlight after a storm. Omari lifted his head slowly. Standing before him was a young woman, dark-skinned, radiant in a simple yellow dress. Her hair was tucked neatly into a bun, her brows drawn with concern. "You look hungry," she said with gentle urgency. "Have you eaten today?" Omari tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. He shook his head faintly. No, not today. The girl looked down at her tiny purse and sighed. I don't have money with me right now, but wait. Please wait. Here, I'll go home and bring you food. Just don't move. I'll be back, I promise. He blinked in disbelief. Okay, he whispered. I'll wait. She smiled. Small, sincere. My name is Nia. Don't forget. I'll come back. And with that she turned and ran down the street. For a moment Omari sat frozen. He had heard many things in the past few days. Mockery, pity, disdain. But this was the first time someone offered him kindness without asking for anything. A tear slipped down his cheek. She saw me, he thought. Not the dirt. Not the cup. Me. 15 minutes later, Nia returned, breathless and carrying a small black nylon bag. Sorry I took long, she said, kneeling beside him. It's jollof rice and fish. I made it this morning. The aroma hit his nose like music. His stomach growled loudly. He opened the bag and began to eat, scooping the rice with his hands as if he hadn't tasted food in years. Nia sat beside him on the ground. Easy, she said with a smile. Don't choke. When he was done, Omari looked at her with eyes full of emotion. Thank you, he whispered. You're welcome, she replied softly. They sat in silence. A strange comfort settled between them. Then Nia asked, Where do you sleep at night? Omari hesitated. Under the bridge, with the others. Her face dropped. No, that's not safe. People steal, fight. Some even get stabbed. He shrugged. I don't have a choice. Nia stood up quickly. Wait, let me talk to my mother. Maybe, just maybe, you can stay in our backyard room. It's small, but it's safer. Omari blinked in surprise. You'd do that? She nodded. My mom is kind. I'll ask her. And before he could answer, she turned and dashed away again. As she disappeared around the corner, Omari stared after her, something strange stirring in his chest. He didn't know her, but something told him. He was about to meet the woman who would change everything. Nia's heart thundered as she slipped quietly into the small kitchen at the back of their weathered family home. Her mother, Ms. Ramona Caldwell, was slicing okra at the counter. Ramona looked up, puzzled. Where have you been, Nia? Mama, Nia said, breathing hard. I met someone. A man. A poor man. He's sick. Hungry. He's been sleeping under the bridge. Ramona set the knife down slowly. A man? What kind of man? He's young. Maybe in his 30s. But Mama, his body is weak. He hasn't eaten in days. I gave him food and I want to help him, please. Let's let him stay, just for a few nights, in the back room. No one uses it. Ramona crossed her arms, eyeing her daughter with quiet concern. You want to bring a stranger into our house? Just like that? What if he's dangerous? You always tell me kindness matters, Nia pleaded. He's not dangerous. I can feel it. He didn't even ask me for anything. Ramona studied her daughter for a long moment. Where is he now? Near the junction, Nia said. I told him to wait. Ramona sighed and sat on a kitchen stool. Is he old? No, Mama. Young. But life has clearly been hard on him. More silence. Then Ramona spoke again, voice low. All right, but don't say a word to your father. You know how Bishop Clarence is. He listens to that second wife of his too much. If he finds out, he'll chase the boy out or blame me. Nia's eyes widened. Really? You'll let him stay? Ramona nodded. Yes, but there are rules. He stays in the backyard room. No wandering around. No talking to anyone else. Only come out at night when everyone's asleep or away. I understand. I promise. Go bring him. And quietly. Nia was gone in a flash, sprinting back to where she left Omari. He was still there, leaning against the wall, arms folded, looking like the world had chewed him up. "You're still here," she said softly. He lifted his head and managed a faint smile. "I said I'd wait." "Come with me," she whispered. "You have a place now." They walked in silence beneath the softening sky. When they reached the back gate, Nia opened it gently, leading Omari past the kitchen and into a small, bare room at the rear of the compound. Ramona was waiting at the door. "So this is him?" she asked, eyes scanning his worn face. "Yes, ma'am," Omari said, lowering his head. "You can stay," she said firmly. "But follow the rules. No noise. No movement during the day. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." "Go inside," she told Nia. "Bring a bucket of water, some soap, and a wrapper. I'll get him a mat and a plate of food." As Nia hurried away, Omari blinked rapidly, emotions welling. I don't know how to thank you." "Start by resting," Ramona said, voice softening. "You need your strength." That night, Omari washed in a small corner behind the kitchen, where no one could see him. Ramona later brought him rice and stew. He ate in silence, heart full, and for the first time in days, Omari Langston, disguised as a beggar, slept peacefully, not on cold concrete, but on a simple mat in a room filled with kindness. The morning sun filtered softly through the dusty window of the small room. Omari sat up slowly, stretching his arms. Birds chirped nearby. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed. The room was plain, no marble, no art, no air conditioning, but it was warm. It was safe. It was real. A knock came, light and cautious. "It's me," Nia's voice whispered. He opened the door slightly. She stood there with a tray, boiled eggs, warm bread, and a steaming cup of tea. "Good morning," she said with a gentle smile. Omari's voice cracked as he replied, "Good morning, and thank you." She stepped inside quietly, sitting on the wooden stool in the corner. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Better than I have in years," he said honestly. As he ate, Nia watched him carefully. Something about him still didn't sit right. His posture, his speech, the way he said thank you like he'd once worn a crown. He didn't sound like any man she'd ever met on the streets. But she said nothing. Trying not to seem intrusive, she eventually asked, "What happened to you? Why were you out there like that?" Omari paused. He couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. So he crafted a half-truth. "Life turned upside down," he said softly. "I lost everything." Nia lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," he replied. "You've done more for me than anyone ever has." She smiled, faintly. "I just did what I felt was right." Then came the sound of footsteps inside the main house. Nia's eyes widened. "My father's awake. I have to go. Please, stay in here. Don't come out until nightfall." "I won't," Omari promised. She left the room quickly and the door closed behind her. Inside the house, life returned to its usual rhythm, but underneath the surface, secrets were stirring. That afternoon, while Nia helped her mother slice vegetables again, Ramona suddenly asked, "What's his name?" Nia blinked. "He said, Omari." Ramona nodded slowly. "He speaks like a man who's been educated. He doesn't sound broken." "I thought so too," Nia whispered. "But he won't say much." Ramona stared out the window. "There's more to him than he's saying, I feel it." And in another part of the house, Sister Verona, the second wife, was sipping from her porcelain teacup, watching Nia from the corner of her eye. In her room, Verona's daughter, Tanisha, had already begun keeping tabs. 2 days passed. Omari stayed hidden in the small backyard room just as promised. Each morning, Nia brought him food and clean water. Her mother, Ramona, helped discreetly, never saying much but always watching, always assessing. There was warmth in her silence, a kindness that didn't need words. Nia would often sit with Omari for a few minutes before sunrise, talking about the outside world, telling him about her dreams of becoming a nurse, how she studied at night, When the house was quiet, how she always felt like a guest in her own home. "I love my father," she said one morning, but after he married Verona, everything changed. My mother became invisible. Omari listened, silently furious at the injustice but careful not to show it. "She's the one who holds this family together," Naya added. "She deserves more than silence and corners." "She deserves respect," Omari said gently. But peace in the household was always temporary. Tanisha had been watching closely. She noticed the trays Nia carried. She counted the footsteps. She timed her sister's disappearances. One afternoon she entered her mother's room with a smirk. "Mama, Nia's hiding something." Verona looked up from her mirror. "What now?" "She keeps sneaking to the back, with food, with water." Verona's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" "She's feeding someone. I think it's a man." Verona stood, up furious. "In this house? You think she's sneaking food to a stranger behind our backs?" "I know it." Verona crossed her arms and smirked. "Then we watch. 2 more days. Let her hang herself." That night, as the house dimmed into silence, Naya quietly brought a bowl of okra soup to the backyard. She knocked twice. Omari opened, the door smiling. "You didn't have to bring this," he said gratefully. "And let you go hungry?" She smiled. "Besides, Mama made extra." They sat on the floor, sharing quiet laughter. Omari's heart felt lighter with every passing hour, and as he watched Nia laugh, pure and unfiltered, he thought, this is what real looks like. But in the shadows just beyond the kitchen, Tanisha stood, eyes wide with shock, hand clutched over her mouth. The beggar was real, and he was in their house. The next night, Tanisha waited until Nia returned to her room. Then, like a shadow, she crept through the hallway, glancing over her shoulder. She slipped out the back door and tiptoed toward the small room. Her breath was steady. Her heartbeat was not. She knocked twice. Inside, Omari had just finished eating. Thinking it was Nia, he stood and opened the door with a quiet smile. But it wasn't Naya. It was Tanisha. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, lips curled into a wicked smirk. "So, it's true," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "There's a stranger in our house." Omari froze. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I'll leave right now." "Shut up," Tanisha snapped, locking the door behind her. He stared at her, stunned. "You're not going anywhere," she whispered, stepping closer. "You're actually kind of fine. Your skin, your teeth, even your voice. You smell good too." She leaned closer, eyes burning. "I want to kiss you." Omari took a step back. "What?" "You heard me," she said, licking her lips. "You want to stay hidden? Then you'll give me what I want, or I tell my father everything right now." His face twisted in shock. "That's disgusting. You don't even know me." Tanisha laughed. "I don't need to. You'll keep my secret, I'll keep yours, fair trade." But Omari had had enough. "You're shameless," he snapped. "You need help." That insult struck like a slap. Tanisha's eyes blazed with fury. Suddenly, she screamed at the top of her lungs. "Daddy, Daddy, help! There's a stranger in the house. He's trying to touch me." Omari's heart dropped. Within seconds, the compound exploded with chaos. Footsteps thundered. Voices rose. Bishop Clarence stormed out of the house, gripping a long cane in his calloused hand. Verona followed, her scream louder than Tanisha's. "There he is." Tanisha sobbed on the floor, fake tears streaking her cheeks. "He came out of nowhere. He tried to touch me." "You snake," Bishop Clarence roared. "You came into my house to defile my daughter? You're going to meet your ancestors. Today." He swung the cane. Omari blocked it with his arm and staggered back. Suddenly, "Stop!" Nia screamed, rushing into the chaos, Ramona right behind her. "Daddy, no!" Nia shouted. "He didn't do anything." "Be quiet, Bishop," Clarence roared. "It's true," she cried. "Yes, we were hiding him, but he's innocent. He never touched anyone. Tanisha is lying. He's a thief, a pervert," Verona screamed. Liar, Nia shouted back. She's the one who came to his room. Omari stood quietly, his body trembling, not from fear, but from betrayal. You're wicked, he said to Tanisha. You'd lie like this just to ruin someone? You have 10 minutes to leave, Bishop Clarence barked, before I call the police. But before Omari could move, I'm not letting him go, Nia said, stepping in front of him. The air went still. If he goes, I go with him. Everyone gasped. You what? Her father shouted. You heard me, Nia said, trembling but firm. If he leaves, I leave too. Ramona stepped forward and took her daughter's hand. And I'll go with her, since I am no longer welcome in this house. You ungrateful woman, Clarence shouted. Go then, you and your useless child. No, Ramona said, voice rising for the first time. You made your choice the day you called Verona a queen and made me a maid. You destroyed this family, Verona hissed, clapping her hands. Good riddance, village woman, Ramona smiled. Yes, I'm leaving, and thank God for it. Nia ran inside and packed what little she had. Omari helped Ramona carry a small box of pots and plates. The three of them walked out the gate without looking back. Behind them, Clarence shouted, Don't you dare come back. You'll regret this. But Nia didn't turn around. She just whispered, I'd rather be poor with peace than rich with poison. 30 minutes later, the sun had dipped low behind the city skyline as the trio reached the outskirts of town. The streets here were quiet. Fewer people, fewer buildings. Life moved slower, but for the first time in years the air felt free. Ramona paused before a rusted iron gate. This, she said quietly, was my father's house. The small building behind the gate was old and weather-worn. Its walls, faded with time, but it still stood strong. The compound was empty. Crickets chirped in the nearby grass. Peace at last had returned. Nia stared at it. Mama, I thought this house was abandoned. It was. Ramona nodded. But after my parents died, a distant cousin lived here. He moved out last month. Now it's empty. I thought I had lost everything. But maybe God planned this all along. They stepped inside. 2 rooms. A tiny kitchen. A bathroom barely large enough for one person. No fancy lights, no soft rugs, but it was theirs. Nia smiled and hugged her mother tightly. I'm proud of you. Ramona held her daughter's face in her hands. No, I'm proud of you. You stood by a stranger when everyone else turned against him. Omari stood to the side, his duffel bag still on his shoulder. You shouldn't have followed me. You had a home. Ramona stepped forward and gently placed her hand on his arm. My son, we didn't follow you because we had nowhere else. We followed you because you gave us strength to walk away, Nia added. We may have left with nothing, but we gained something money can't buy. Freedom. Omari's eyes welled with tears and he nodded slowly. They rolled up their sleeves that evening, sweeping floors, dusting windows, scrubbing the walls with buckets of soapy water. Ramona set aside 2 old mattresses she'd found in storage, one for Omari, one for Nia. By nightfall, the house felt less like a ruin and more like a home. As the stars blinked above them, Omari stepped outside and looked up. In the distance, city lights glittered like gold. But here, under the open sky, he had found something far rarer. A family. Days passed. Then a week. In their small, quiet corner of the world, life began to bloom again. Each morning, Omari woke early to sweep the compound, fetch water, and do odd jobs in the neighborhood, repairing doors, carrying heavy loads, even mowing overgrown lawns for a few naira and warm thank yous. Nia helped her mother, Ramona, who returned to the market to sell fresh vegetables from a small wooden stall. Together, they saved every coin. They cooked together, cleaned together, laughed often, and cried occasionally when the weight of the past came knocking. Their new life was simple, but rich in the things that once eluded them. One cool evening, after dinner, Omari sat under the mango tree in the compound. Nia joined him quietly, sitting close but not touching. The stars above flickered like tiny promises. "Thank you for staying," she said softly, resting her head against his shoulder. "I didn't have a choice," he replied, his voice deep and quiet. "From the moment you handed me that plate of jollof rice, I knew something in my life had shifted." Nia smiled gently. "I felt it too. Even when I didn't know your name, something about you was different." There was silence. Then, Omari turned fully to face her. He took her hand, trembling slightly. "Nia," he said slowly, "I love you." Her eyes widened. She stared at him, lips parting, breath catching. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice shaking. "From that first day, I just didn't know how to say it." Omari pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "You don't know what that means to me," he said, voice tight with emotion. "You don't know what you mean to me," she replied, holding him tighter. That night they sat beneath the stars, talking until their eyes grew heavy, sharing their dreams, fears, and pieces of their pasts. Nia spoke, of finishing school, becoming a nurse, maybe opening a small clinic for poor families. Omari only smiled and listened, knowing the truth about who he was still sat heavy on his tongue. He wanted to tell her everything, but not yet. Not until he earned her future. Not until he was ready to build it. 2 weeks later, after sweeping the front yard, Omari asked them both to sit. "I've made a decision," he said. Nia and her mother turned to him surprised. "I want to go back to the city." Nia's heart dropped. "What?" "I need to work, save, prepare. I can't keep living under your roof eating your food. I'm a man. And if I really want to marry you, Nia, I need to build something first." "No," Nia said, standing up. "I don't want you to go." Omari gently reached for her hand. "It's not goodbye. It's a promise. I will come back. Stronger. Better. For you." Tears filled her eyes. "But what if you don't?" "I will," he said. "I swear." Ramona nodded in support. "Let him go, my daughter. He's doing the right thing. Let's pray for his success." Nia looked at them both, her heart breaking and blooming at the same time. "Okay," she whispered. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't break my heart." "I won't," he said, hugging her tightly. "You're the reason I have one." The next morning, Omari packed his duffel once more, this time with clean clothes and quiet dignity. Before leaving, he hugged Ramona. "Thank you, Mama." "Go well, my son," she whispered. "And may God guide your feet." He turned to Nia. She didn't speak. She just hugged him fiercely, burying her face in his chest. "I'll be back," he whispered. "You gave me a reason to live again." And then he walked away. Nia stood at the gate long after he was gone, eyes on the horizon, her heart in his hands. That evening, Nia sat on the front step of the old house, knees pulled to her chest, eyes locked on the moon above. "Mama," she whispered. Ramona, sweeping just a few feet away, paused. "Yes, baby?" "What if he forgets me?" Ramona set the broom aside and came to sit beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "He won't," she said. "You don't forget someone who saved your soul." Nia closed her eyes and leaned into her mother. "I'm scared." "I was scared too," Ramona whispered, "on the day I married your father. But love isn't about never being scared, it's about standing your ground, even when your heart is shaking." Nia nodded, holding back the tears. "I miss him already." "No, my child, but if it's meant to be, nothing will stop it." Sir Ostor, meanwhile, in the city, Omari stepped out of the bus and onto the pavement of his old world. Polished sidewalks, shining skyscrapers, blacked-out SUVs. It felt foreign now. He didn't go to his penthouse. He went straight to a quiet mansion tucked into a private street. His father, Elias Langston, was seated on the veranda reading a newspaper, dressed in a traditional tunic with gold embroidery and soft leather slippers. "Dad," Omari said. Elias looked up slowly, and for the first time in his life, Omari saw surprise flash in his father's wise eyes. "Omari?" Elias stood. "Where have you been?" Omari stepped forward and sat across from him. "I have a story to tell." And he told him everything, from the disguise to the hunger, from Nia's kindness to her family's betrayal, and how they all walked away from pain into peace. Elias sat silently for a long time. "She followed you," he said at last. "Even when you had nothing." "She didn't follow my name," Omari replied. "She followed my heart." Elias smiled. "Then she's the one." The next day, a sleek black SUV rolled slowly through the village. Nia and Ramona were sitting outside under the mango tree when they saw it. Their eyes widened as the vehicle stopped right in front of the gate. The door opened. Omari stepped out, clean-cut, confident, and no longer dressed in worn slippers or faded jeans. He wasn't alone. Behind him came a tall, stately man in a deep, navy agbada and polished shoes, his father Elias Langston. Nia gasped. "Omari?" Ramona clutched her chest. "Oh my God." Omari smiled and stepped forward. "It's me. And this," he turned slightly, "is my father." They both dropped to their knees out of respect. "Please," Elias said kindly, helping them up. "No need for that. We came to thank you. You took care of my son when no one else would. You gave him shelter, food, dignity, and most importantly, love." Nia looked at Omari, eyes wide. "So, your real name?" "Is Omari Langston," he said. "And I'm sorry I hid it. But I had to know that what we had was real." She was speechless. Her hands trembled. "I love you, Nia," Omari said softly, "and I want to marry you." Tears fell down her face. "Really?" He took her hands. "You stayed when I had nothing. You believed in me. You deserve everything I am." "I love you too," she whispered. "And yes, I'll marry you." Behind them, Ramona wiped her tears, and Elias Langston smiled. The next morning, Omari stood tall in a crisp, traditional kaftan. Beside him was his father, Elias Langston, dressed with royal elegance, holding a small leather folder, the formal proposal. They were on their way to Bishop Clarence Caldwell's house. Despite everything, Nia insisted, "You still need to ask him properly. It's our culture." Omari respected that. So did his father. When they arrived, Clarence was seated beneath the mango tree in a plastic chair, sipping bitter tea. His expression hardened the moment he saw them. Omari and Elias greeted him with respect. "We've come to do the right thing," Elias said. "My son would like to marry your daughter, Nia. We're here to collect the list and begin marriage rites." Instead of joy, Bishop Clarence's face turned to stone. "No," Elias blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "You cannot marry Nia," he said coldly. "In this house, my first daughter, Tanisha, must marry before any other. It is our tradition." Omari stepped forward, confused. "Sir, with all due respect—" "If you want to marry Nia," Clarence interrupted, "then marry them both. Or wait, years if needed. That's how things are done here." Elias's brows lifted in disbelief. "That's absurd." Clarence crossed his legs smugly. "Then walk away with all your riches, but Nia will remain unmarried until Tanisha finds a husband." Omari's fists clenched. Elias stood, his voice rising. "You'd rather follow outdated tradition than allow your daughter happiness?" Clarence smirked. "What you call outdated, I call honor." They left without another word. Inside the house, Tanisha and Verona peeked from behind the curtain, smiling like hyenas. "He'll be back," Verona whispered. "He won't settle for that local girl when he sees what we can offer." But they were wrong. Omari didn't retreat. As they drove away in silence, Elias suddenly sat up. "Wait, what?" Omari asked. "I just remembered. My old friend. We went to school together." He's not just a man anymore. He's a king. Omari turned. A king? Elias nodded. His palace isn't far from here. If anyone can settle this foolishness, it's him. The car turned around. Within the hour, royal gates opened to receive them. King Adetokunbo, tall and regal in golden robes, emerged from the palace with a warm grin. Elias Langston, it's been decades. They embraced like brothers. Omari bowed respectfully. Over palm wine and laughter, Elias explained the situation. Tanisha, the absurd tradition, the denied blessing. The king's expression hardened. That tradition was abolished over a year ago, he said firmly. No woman should have her life put on hold because of birth order. That rule has broken too many hearts. I ended it myself. Omari's chest lifted with relief. Don't worry, the king added, rising to his feet. I'll make it clear no one stands in the way of true love, not in my kingdom. 2 days later, a royal messenger rode into Bishop Clarence Caldwell's compound on a motorbike, a sealed scroll in hand bearing the golden crest of King Adetokunbo. Clarence stepped out, squinting at the sun. The king summons you, the messenger said, voice firm. Tomorrow before noon, do not be late. Clarence's hands trembled slightly, but his pride masked his fear. What does he want with me? The messenger gave no answer, only bowed once and drove away. That night, Verona ranted like thunder. What is this nonsense? A whole king interfering in family affairs? But Clarence was already shaken. He barely ate, barely slept. The next morning, he dressed in his finest agbada, combed his beard twice, and made the long journey to the palace. The royal guards opened the gates with heavy silence. Inside, King Adetokunbo sat high upon a golden throne flanked by guards, his voice echoing through the chamber. Bishop Caldwell, the king said, his tone controlled yet razor-sharp. You denied a noble man the hand of a woman who loves him. You used a tradition that no longer exists. Clarence fell to his knees. Your Majesty, Silence, the king boomed. That tradition was abolished last year. Every daughter has the right to marry when love finds her. No one, not even a father, may deny that. Clarence lowered his head in shame. You have 2 choices, the king said. Bless your daughter's marriage, or be stripped of your community respect and spiritual authority. I accept, Your Majesty, Clarence said quickly. Please, forgive me. The king nodded once. Then let love proceed. Let peace return. The same week, wedding plans began like wildfire. Tailors sewed. Caterers danced around steaming pots. Nia chose a white lace gown with silver beads. Ramona prepared herbs for a ceremonial blessing. Clarence, now humbled, came to the house days later with his head lowered. I was blind, he whispered to Omari. But thank you for not giving up. Omari looked him in the eye. She's worth everything. Nia stood beside him, radiant. And when the wedding day came, the entire town turned out. The music echoed through the hills, drums beat like hearts in love, and colors filled the air. Like joy had found a permanent home, Omari wore a white agbada trimmed with gold. Nia walked toward him with tears in her eyes and strength in her soul. They exchanged vows under the mango tree where their story began. And when they kissed, the world clapped. Even Clarence did. But not everyone was happy. While the village danced and the drums echoed through the air, Verona and Tanisha sat in silence. Verona stared at the wedding from a distance, her fists clenched around the edge of her chair. That dirty girl is now living my dream, she hissed. In a mansion, with a billionaire, wearing lace and diamonds. Tanisha's eyes burned red with fury. That's supposed to be me, Mama, me. You stupid girl, Verona snapped. You should have seduced him properly. Now look. Tanisha stood suddenly, her chair falling backward. We have to do something. Verona's voice dropped to a whisper. We will. That very night, Verona packed a small bag with beads, charcoal, and old notes. They took a night bus, slipping, away like ghosts into the storm. As rain poured and thunder shook the hills, their destination was whispered on every breath. A native doctor, in a distant village, a man known for darkness. "If we can't break them with lies," Verona said, her voice like poison, "we'll break them with charms." The bus swerved along a muddy hillside. Then, screams, brakes screeched. The tires lost grip on the soaked road. The bus flipped once, twice, 3 times. Morning news spread like wildfire across town. A tragic accident. Only 2 casualties. Verona. Tanisha. Both died instantly. The village mourned quietly, but no one wept long. Some whispered it was karma. Others simply shook their heads and said, "God sees all." Back in the city, Omari, Nia, and Ramona had moved into a stunning white mansion on the coast. Gardens blooming with roses, sunlight falling through crystal, windows, a kitchen filled with laughter and spice. Nia enrolled in nursing school. Ramona opened a food business with Omari's support, and love, real, unshaken love, became their daily bread. But far away, Bishop Clarence sat alone under the same mango tree, the same spot where he once raised his cane at a man he never knew. Now silence was his only companion. The family he once controlled was gone. Tears streamed down his face. "She was right," he whispered. "I was the fool." A full year passed. The white mansion was no longer just a home. It was a sanctuary of peace. Sunlight streamed into the nursery where soft lullabies played. Nia stood beside a wooden crib, rocking gently with 2 tiny bundles wrapped in pale blue. Twin boys, David and Daniel Langston. Their tiny eyes fluttered. Their little hands grasped the air, as if already reaching for the world. Omari stepped in, barefoot and smiling, holding a tray of tea for Ramona. "They look just like you," he whispered to Nia. She looked up, glowing. "They smile like you." Ramona sat nearby in a rocking chair, humming a song from her childhood. Her eyes watched the twins, but her heart watched her daughter, whole, loved, protected. Omari wrapped his arms around Nia, resting his head on her shoulder. "You were worth every test, Nia." She leaned into him. "And you were worth every tear." They stood in silence, breathing in the peace they fought so hard to find. Out in the garden, lilies bloomed in the corners of stone paths. A fresh breeze rustled the mango tree Omari had planted, grown from a seed Nia once picked up during their first week in the village. It stood tall now, unshakable. Elsewhere, Bishop Clarence walked into a local church alone. His suit was old, his back slightly hunched. The preacher's voice echoed, "To everything, there is a season." Clarence sat in the last row. Eyes closed. Head bowed. He said no words. Only tears. He'd lost his daughter, his wife, his power, but not his memory. Not the echo of Nia's voice calling him daddy, back when her heart was still soft. But some things once broken could never be restored. Back at the mansion, Omari, Nia, and Ramona sat beneath their new mango tree as the twins slept soundly, inside. They laughed. They shared a plate of grilled corn, and they talked about building a small hospital in the neighborhood, free for mothers and children. A family born from deception, grown through pain, had bloomed into something even royalty couldn't buy. Peace. Love. Purpose. Omari looked out over the horizon, then turned to Nia. "From street to palace," he said quietly. "That's what our story was." "No." Nia smiled. "It wasn't about where we came from. It was about what we refused to become." She kissed him gently on the cheek. "And how we chose love, when we had every reason not to. And under the evening sky, wrapped in laughter and legacy, they lived happily ever after."